Commissioner Cook?
Good morning.
Good morning. Commissioner Peck, are you on the line?
I am. Good morning.
Okay.
Good morning, Brad.
Commissioner Didier is here in the Commissioner's meeting room.
I thought we'd gone over all that already a couple of weeks, about no in-person meetings.
Well, I've read what Sean sent out, and I have a legitimate argument here I'd like to discuss.
Now, we can't go much further without the end.
Okay, well, Sean sent me this again. I asked for the specific language, and where he's coming from is question
Point
3.
of order. This is a discussion of county business. It's an unlawful meeting. It is an action.
Hey, excuse me, Commissioner Peck, but I did have the floor.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did have the floor. I'm explaining my situation.
Mr. Chairman. Point
Just
of
a
order.
minute. Yes, Brad?
We've been through this before. Commissioner Didier is attempting to discuss an item of county business before a forum of this body, and that is an unlawful act. And if it persists, I'll hang up and you can call me back when you're done. But we've been down this road, and this issue should have been addressed prior to the meeting.
Well, that would make it an illegal meeting because I did discuss it with our administrator, but to discuss it with you or Commissioner Cook would be an illegal meeting according to the Open Meetings Act.
Commissioner Didier, if you want to pursue this from a remote location, we can.
No, I don't. I want to pursue it from here because I got more and more people talking to me and telling me they appreciate what I'm doing. And I'm going to discuss this right now. So it'd be good for you to hang up, Mr. Peck. Why don't you hang up so I can discuss it with Bob? Because this is an open meeting and now I can discuss it. It's on record.
We have not opened the meeting yet. I have mentioned the fact that we have gone through this for 2 weeks in a row. According to the governor's proclamation, it is an illegal meeting. With an in-person meeting is illegal. It's been brought up 2 weeks in a row by our prosecuting attorney. With the background, prosecuting attorney sent you a notice again this week explaining it. I don't know what else we can do.
I never got to read this notice, Chairman, until after the meeting because it was only sent 2 minutes prior to the last meeting. And after reading it, I would like to go over something with you that it specifically states here, or when board members attend in person, even if the public does not. It's not taking us out of here. And if we're worried about spreading a germ, I've met with both of these people in the meeting room prior to this meeting down in our chamber. There's no germs here going to be spread. I've already met with both these people prior to the meeting.
That does not matter. We're under a governor's proclamation, which makes it an illegal meeting. No matter who's going to spread what or wear a mask or not, that is not the question. And then
Commissioner,
on Monday.
Commissioner Cook, this is Sean Sun. I would recommend, I haven't heard the board meeting called to order. If we're going to have prolonged discussions, I'd recommend that we call the meeting to order.
Okay.
Before engaging with this.
Okay, we can do that. We will call the meeting to order. We have all three commissioners, Commissioner Peck and myself are remote. Commissioner Didier is in the conference room. So, meeting is open.
Now maybe we say the pledge so we renew our allegiance to the flag in this country, the supreme law of the land, the Constitution. Shall we say the pledge?
We can do that.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
All right. So on question 3, revision, the proclamation language states that meetings are not conducted in person applies to the governing body members as well. Remember, The purpose of the temporary proclamation is to enhance social distancing and reduce person-to-person opportunities for virus transmission. As I already stated, I met with both of the people in the meeting room. Further down here, it says, such contacts could occur, for example, when staff are setting up a meeting room, or when staff or board members or the clerk would attend in person, or when board members attend in person, even if the public does not. Board members attend in person, even if the public does not. On 4, it says when one or more governing body members participate remotely by phone, the agency needs to have a speakerphone available at the agency's meeting location, agency office, and other designated physical location when the public can attend and to listen to the discussion. So again, it's talking about 2 members being away, 1 in the chamber. I don't understand what's the big deal here about not having a commissioner in here when we're trying to get back to some normalcy. And it states here, or when a board member attends in person, even if the public does not. How do we interpret that we're breaking the law?
Sean Sands sent out a notice talking about the OPMA inquiry on Monday at 3:01. And there's a couple of highlights in it. One of them says any public agency subject to RCW 4230 is prohibited from conducting any meeting subject to 4230 unless the meeting is not conducted in person and instead provides the options for public to attend meetings through at minimum telephonic access. I don't know what else we can say. 2 weeks in a row, it's the 3rd week in a row that this has been discussed, and it hasn't changed the proclamation any.
Well, those highlighted areas is what I read, Bob, and then I read that a little further down from the highlighted area. And again, when you go clear back to the back, as a result, we suggest that the agency will not keep in mind the OPM's open government cornerstones. These cornerstones would support reasons to temporarily limit a governor's body usual business during this outbreak, and for it to focus instead on only those matters necessary or routine, or those needed to deal with the outbreak. I mean, this thing is not saying we can't attend the chamber. It's saying that we can't have the public in here and multiple people. We have 3 people. Both of these people I've met with this morning in close proximity. There's no germs here that are going to be transferred. I'm 10 feet away from Keith. I don't understand why you are so obsessed with me not being in this meeting room.
That is not the point. The point is the governor's proclamation. I didn't make the proclamation. I wasn't one of the 4 corners that has backed up the governor's proclamation.
The proclamation is there to be interpreted. And obviously, the interpretation that we're taking on that proclamation, I don't agree with.
Well, honestly, I can't help that. Another revision on here, proclamation language stating that meetings are not conducted in person applies to the governing body members as well.
Well, I am a persistent person, and I will be coming back every meeting until we see the light, because this is truly a travesty in Franklin County when we don't have the nerve, and he's locked us back down again, to meet in person and to show our constituents that we're going to conduct business as usual in Franklin County. And it's a sad day, because right now people are losing everything they've got if they haven't already done that. And we're hiding and sheltering in place. And that's a sad, sad day.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think there's a pretty essential observation or point that seems to continually get overlooked and or ignored. I've not heard you or me or the county administrator talk about our fears of somebody being infected by the presence of a commissioner in the boardroom. The issue is whether or not, if we conduct a meeting in violation of written lawful order from the state, does that risk making all of the actions taken by this board in such meeting unlawful and irrelevant? There are consequences to the people we're trying to serve if someone should come in after a meeting and challenge the lawfulness of the board's actions, approving contracts for CARES Act fund, any number of issues, and we open the door for people to challenge the legality of our actions when the meeting itself, at least in black and white terms under the law, is not lawful. Whether we think it should be allowed or not, whether we interpret it a certain way, is not at all the point. It's whether or not we can conduct the people's business with a reasonable degree of assurance that it won't be subject to legal challenge on the basis that it was an illegal meeting. That's my primary concern. Thank you.
Well, if that's the case, then every meeting that we've had can be challenged. Because I start every meeting in here. So it's already could be challenged. And it hasn't. So Bob, I'm looking to you. Do I need to remove myself to my office, Bob, or can I stay?
I know you've heard my point of view for 3 weeks now. I'm going by what the governor's proclamation says.
Okay.
I think we'll recess for 5 minutes while Clint gets set up in his office. It is 9:12. go. There we go. So, all right, we are back after recess for our regular board meeting for Tuesday, July 21. Our next item on the agenda is approval of minutes for July 7 and June 23. There's no addition, corrections, or changes. I will sign them as presented.
Yes, Chairman. Commissioner Didier here. On the July 7th, we asked for verbatim, excuse me. No, we asked for verbatim. Trying to get organized after moving back down here.
The minutes for June 23 are the.
Yeah, June 23 verbatim is what we were discussing about the travel issue. And there is, we sent a statement to Commissioner Peck, which he reimbursed the county for what we think were the correct amounts going back to those. And it is going to be discussed further in the meeting, but I just want the public to know that the verbatim is in the minutes, and they can refer to that when they want to look this up.
That was the reason for the verbatim section and why we are now approving them.
Yes, sir. Just wanted to make sure the public knew that they were in there.
Okay, all in favor?
Mr.
Aye.
Chairman, no objection.
Will be signed. Next item on the agenda is the Liberty State Foundation presentation. Keith, do we have somebody on board?
I believe Danny Bolliard is representing the Liberty State Foundation and would like to speak to the board. Danny, are you on the line?
I am.
Okay, please go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Commissioners, for the opportunity to bring this petition of the people to you. My name, as you said, is Danny Bolliard. I am from Grant County, but I'm the coordinator for Liberty State. This morning we have presentations both in your county and in Benton County. So we're stretching us out trying to reach both meetings. I am here to represent the people that signed the petition and those that participate in the movement in many ways. We are still a growing group down there, and we're still bringing in more signatures and actively working on that. The gentleman presenting in Benton County is our new captain down there, and he'll be moving forward in both counties to bring more information and provide more signatures for you. So I know you have the packets in front of you. I'm not going to repeat everything that's in there. But I'm happy to answer the questions that you have. We have at least 10 other counties hearing this week. Some went yesterday, some will go tomorrow. We have more next week. This petition does not bind you to any further action. It simply allows people to tell you what they think of this movement and its intent. It is a big issue in Eastern Washington, and at some point, the counties are going to have to say whether they're going to approve this or not. So that's kind of what we're asking. We're allowing the public to tell you what they feel about it so that you know whether you want to get behind it or not. As I mentioned in the letter, the advisory votes are allowed at the county level per the Attorney General's opinion from 1974. That was Slade Gordon who gave that opinion. And by doing it on the November ballot, it's removing much of the cost to the county while still allowing the people to give their vote in a formal manner. we know that the Secretary of State has put out some conflicting information, but as we understand it, she thinks this is an initiative or referendum. It is not. So it doesn't fall under those rules, and it does not have to be published statewide. So we're actively working with her to try to explain what's going on. This is not something that has been used often, but it was used in creating the conservation districts around the area. One county we spoke to yesterday said they had used it to seek the public's opinion on putting a jail in place. So we're trying to get all that information to her so that she understands what's going on. The process, as far as we understand it, that the three of you would pass a resolution to allow this on the ballot, and you forward that blank petition that I included in that packet to the elections office by August 4th. So essentially, this is just a way to let the people tell you where they stand on this issue and what they'd like to do. The basic process of petitioning our government for redress of grievances. And that's essentially what this is. We're saying that we have a lot of grievances about the way a lot of things are handled from the west side of the state. And the people want the option of creating a new state east of the Cascades. So I am willing to take any questions you might have.
Questions, gentlemen?
Good morning, Danny, Brad, Peck. We've met and spoken on several occasions in the past. The estimated cost for this advisory vote and the funding source for it, I didn't see that in the read-ahead materials.
We were told that because it was on the November ballot and not a special election, that it would be extremely cheap to do this because you have so many other things on the ballot. What we're hearing from some of the elections offices right now is they're quoting us numbers that are approaching $36,000 to put it on the ballot, which would tell us that they're looking at it as a special election, not as an addition to the current election.
So I agree that that number sounds more like an independent advisory vote.
Exactly.
I would be concerned about approving an expenditure when we don't know the amount and who will be paying for it.
Yeah.
My recollection is that it's not a requirement for the county to fund the advisory vote, that the group sponsoring or requesting may also do that. I'm not 100% certain, but that's my memory that that's one of the options. Is this group able or willing or interested in funding the cost of an advisory vote?
We're interested, and if we can figure out what the cost actually is, the elections department are telling us they don't know. So we have nothing to base it on until they're able to figure out how much it would cost to add those couple of lines to the ballot. All we can say is we're interested. We'd love to, but no one yet is able to give us an actual cost.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
So Danny, this is Commissioner Didier. Are we talking the primary or the general?
We're talking the general.
That's what I'm thinking. That's down the road. When do you need a decision by?
August 4th. That's the last day that any measures can be added to the November ballot,
Okay.
according to the Secretary of State.
And you also stated that there was a sheet in here included for us to fill out. I don't have that.
I sent a full packet out that includes a 4-page letter to you, a financial document, a couple of infographics, and then a blank petition. So
Petition I don't have.
Okay. I will make sure you get that. And I don't have one in front of me. It essentially says, we resolve that this petition of the people be added to the November ballot should the people want Liberty State, basically, okay, so last year when we did the advisory votes for the tax emission, or the tax increases, it's worded similarly. You know, what is your opinion on this? It does not create law, anything of that nature. So it's literally like a couple of sentences.
Yeah, there is one in the packet, Commissioner.
Page 23.
Page 23. Mine only goes up to page 13 in my book. So I'm missing a lot of stuff
It's
here.
not two-sided, is it?
Nope. Mine's all one-sided and I've only got 13 pages, so I didn't not receive it.
Yeah.
I would be very much inclined to be in favor of this for a vote of the people to see if there is a interest on pursuing this. And we do have some time left before the August 4th date. Maybe the three commissioners could get out and talk to the public a little bit and sort of get a sentiment to where they're at on this.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Peck, I'm happy to have an advisory vote of the people. The more input we can get, the better. It's an interesting topic. My focus is on the concern who pays, and if the proponents are willing to fund it, I'm willing to support the advisory vote.
Well, as we were talking, it's an advisory vote, so I have to agree. This petition, so to speak, is not, like I say, is not binding to anything. It's just asking the constituents what they think. So I can agree with signing up and go from there.
Do we need a motion then, Chairman?
I don't. This is just advisory
Commissioner
vote.
Peck,
Yes.
am I clear in my understanding that your support for the advisory vote is conditioned on the advocates or the proponents bringing this to us, that they are the ones funding it, not the county? Is that correct?
At this point, there's going to have to be some revenue someplace, whether, if it's an assessment to each county that wants to sign on, or, I don't.
I just wanted to be clear. My support is predicated on the advocates for the advisory vote funding it, or someone on their behalf, as opposed to the county funding it.
Yeah. Danny, what's your thoughts on that?
Our thought on that is, if we can get together with your elections office, or you can get together with the elections office and let us know, discuss what the cost might be, and we can move forward from there.
And Mr. Chairman, my experience with this in the past has been that the cost can be fairly minor when it is an existing large ballot, and the addition of an advisory vote doesn't necessitate an additional page or other physical change that might increase the size of the ballot, the weight for mailing, those kinds of considerations. If it doesn't change those factors, I would imagine the cost would be relatively minor, and would hope that our audit office would be able to provide that information, or at least an estimate.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we understand the predication, and if that falls through, we will obviously let you know, but we'd love to see those numbers and see if we can commit to that.
And Mr. Chairman, if it's your preference, given that we're getting close to the timeline here, just looking at the calendar, we've got at least one more meeting before. So we can get an answer on that cost and willingness to fund it by next week's meeting. That'd be a good time for a motion then.
I believe you're right. Yes, thank you. Commissioner Didier, agree?
I agree.
Okay.
Let's make sure it's on the schedule next week.
Yeah. All right, thank you for your time and expertise.
Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thanks, Dan.
Bye.
All right, our next item on the agenda is CARES Act update. Keith?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Commissioner. I think you're all aware of the recent conversations that have gone on in the area of the CARES Act funding. Franklin County received $5,207,400 in the allocation from the federal government for CARES Act funding. And last week, we received our final confirmation of the contract through the State Department of Commerce to begin allocating those funds locally. And we've had some discussion about how we best invest that in the community and to take care of those businesses that are suffering as a result of the shutdown over COVID. The county has incurred some additional costs as an entity itself, but it's clear that there's a willingness and a desire to push most of these proceeds out into the business community and cover those costs that they've been impacted by. So the TRIDEC organization, which is our associate economic development organization recognized by the State Department of Commerce, entered into an agreement with Benton County last week to distribute, I think it was $3.5 million out of the Benton County allocation to businesses in Benton County. And because TRIDEC is also our recognized ADO or development organization, Carl Dye, who's the executive director there, and I have spoken and talked about the possibility of doing something very similar in Franklin County. They, in fact, have received a number of phone calls from businesses located in Franklin County wondering if TRIDEC was going to offer something similar for Franklin County businesses. We're just a week or so behind getting that contract finished with the Department of Commerce, but my recommendation to the board is that we do something similar, nearly identical to what Benton County is doing, just because it, for a couple of reasons. One, TRIDEC already has the experience and the skills and the program in place to be able to administer this kind of a program. They've identified those businesses that are solely in Franklin County. There's over 2,000 businesses that could potentially qualify for these kinds of grants. And so we put together a contract with TRIDEC. They are amenable to its terms as it's currently written, but if the board wants to negotiate more specific terms, we can do that. But the recommendation would be to allocate $3 million of Franklin County's CARES Act funding to this program. It's essentially broken into businesses by size based on the number of employees that they have, where they can apply for these grants. There are restrictions on what they can and cannot use the funds for. There's a process by which they apply, and it's essentially a lottery-based program where these businesses who are applying for these funds, if they're not selected in the first round, they're automatically included in the second round until the funding is depleted. We chose that route simply because we didn't think that it was the proper place for the board to be in the position of choosing winners and losers, as it were, or being accused of favoritism in any way. And so the system in terms of its fairness, what they decided to do with Benton County, I would recommend the same process basically in Franklin County. There's a little bit of cost associated with administering this program. We would use, again, CARES Act funding to pay for it. It includes the services of TriDeck as well as some software that they had to purchase to manage this grant program. But I'm certainly open to discussion and answering questions. I think time is somewhat of the essence in that we all recognize that businesses are hurting, and we'd like to get this moving as quickly as possible. My discussions with TriDeck indicate that we could get this started in as 10 days to 2 weeks at the outset, but they have committed to making every effort to doing it faster than that, as long as we're doing our part. So I sent you over the weekend a copy of the Benton County program, and since then have drafted it into a contract with Franklin County terms and conditions, and would ask you to consider that as a motion this morning. It's now at the 2020-157 would be the resolution number that's before you for your consideration this morning. So with that, I'll stand for questions.
Keith, I think, appreciate this background, and I think TriDeck is the right place to have this happen rather than us as a board picking and choosing. I believe that $3 million figure is excessive for this early in the game. We have no idea where this is going to lead us as far as cost and COVID. I think I would rather see it, maybe $1 million at this point, and then if there's revenue left, then we can adjust it.
Commissioner Peck, or Commissioner Didier, Commissioner Peck, do you have a thought on the amount that's the appropriate distribution that you'd support?
Well, previously in the other meeting, I would like to see all the money go. Now, Keith just talked about 2,000 businesses, and if you divide 2,000 into 3 million, you get $1,500 a business. 4 months now down, going on 5, 1,500 ain't gonna go very far. These businesses are hurting. Some of them are already folded their tents. We need as many businesses to survive as possible, because that is our tax base. And I would like to see all of the money go to the businesses.
So, Mr. Chairman, I concur with the assessment from Commissioner Didier just now. While I understand your concern about using the funds, if this continues, I anticipate additional CARES Act funding down the road, and the business we save today is one we don't have to save 6 months or a year from now. So with that, I'd move for approval of Resolution 2020-157.
Is there a second?
I would like to ask before I second, we're moving for a $3 million amount going to businesses. The other 2.2, Keith, can you give us a breakdown on that?
Yes, certainly.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. We can have all the discussion, but there's a motion on the floor. It either dies for lack of a second, or we get seconded and then we move to discussion.
Is there a second?
Okay, so I'll take it that motion dies for lack of a second. I'm doing this on purpose so that it opens the door for Commissioner Didier to frame the motion any way he chooses.
Keith, may I get clarification on the 2.2 million?
Yes, certainly. We do have some obligations that fall under the CARES Act funding that the county would simply have no other means to pay for. There are commitments to the juvenile justice system. They have some technology upgrades that are going to run about $30,000 for our contribution. There are a number of technology upgrades that we've had to incur here at the county. I've allocated $150,000 to that. Additional Franklin County COVID response costs, personal protection equipment, and physical barriers and some of those kinds of things that we've had to put in. I've allocated $100,000 to that. The Benton Franklin Health District has significant additional COVID-related response costs for tracing and testing, and our share of that is around $1 million. The general public sector contingency of about 90,000. So our total extra COVID costs, independent of TRIDEC money, would be 1,370,000, and that would leave take out the $3,100,000 for TRIDEC, $3 million to allocate to businesses, and $100,000 for their management fee. That would leave us about $737,400, yet to be determined how we would allocate that. We've had some conversations with other organizations such as the Pasco Chamber of Commerce and the Tri-Cities Chamber of Commerce that are interested in, again, assisting businesses. Those would be a little different program, and we'd have specific agreements with them, more along the line of very small business type assistance. But it's holding some back. And in the case that we do have some additional county costs that are at this present time unknown or unanticipated, because the increased numbers of COVID cases, even though we've been pretty well prepared now for personal protective equipment and those kinds of things, we could still incur some additional costs in the next couple of months. So I didn't want to allocate all of it just yet. We've still got sometime this fall. And if it looks like we have additional funding that can go directly to businesses, then that would be my recommendation. But at this point, I think the $3 million is a reasonable and doable number.
The amount for the juvenile justice you said was 300,000?
No, 30,000.
Oh, 30,000?
Yeah, and that's mostly attributed to they were already getting some new computers for their caseworkers that had to be able to work from home. Their computers were just workstations at their office. So the difference in the cost of a mobile workstation versus a stationary one came out to 20,000 or so. And then we had some additional distancing and physical barriers and improvements that they had to make the facility. And we share that cost with Benton County at basically the rate of inmates in the facility, or the at-risk youth in Franklin and Benton counties. So roughly 25%.
And then you gave us a figure of 150,000 and 100,000. Again, go over what those were for.
Okay.
The 150,000.
The 150,000 are technology upgrades that we needed to do here at Franklin County. Again, a lot of that was mobile technology. I don't have the entire list here in front of me, but I can certainly get that. But that was being set aside to make sure that we could continue to provide telecommuting for those employees that needed it, and install physical barriers where we needed to, and be able to meet the requirements of the governor's orders while we're under the COVID-19 shutdown.
How fast are we going to disperse the 3 million, and TRIDEC is going to make that decision for us?
Yes, they think they could have that up and running no more than 2 weeks, but probably 10 days or less. So next week, we would hope to be able to start approving those applications.
Well, I have a problem with the Ben Franklin Health District getting $1 million because this is the only disease that we've got to test. It's so deadly that we got to test to see if you got it. I mean, I'm just sitting here, I'm looking, yes, we have increased in the numbers of people that got it. Our death rates are going down and the cure rate is going up. And yet we're still testing and we're contact tracing and we're hurting our ag businesses right now with this, these plants that are having to really work hard to find people to work in them because people are being locked down for 14 days. So it is hurting our ag industries terribly bad. And I have a problem with them getting $1 million. I would like to see that $1 million go to businesses to keep them alive.
I understand your concern, Commissioner. My role is to make recommendations to the board. I do think we have an obligation to the Benton Franklin Health District to fund their operations. Whether I personally agree or disagree with how those funds are used, I think our agreement with the health district is such that we're more or less obligated to meet these extra costs that they've incurred.
Keith, I was just kind of looking at the contract and everything. I don't see where there was any figure in the resolution besides what we've been allocated. Will we need to install that or?
Let me. I believe it was included in the service agreement. Let me make sure that that's the case. Otherwise, you would be correct. Yeah, it's noted in Exhibit A of the service agreement is where the $3 million is noted. So it's included by reference in the resolution.
Okay. There it is. Okay, I didn't pick up on it.
Yeah.
I just went through it quickly, but I didn't
Well,
I see it now that the county will have approximately $3 million to disperse to
Yeah.
qualified companies and organizations through the grant program.
Yes.
All right. So do we have a motion for Resolution 2020-157?
So, Mr. Chairman, I made that motion a few moments ago. It died for lack of a second. If you're indicating that you're willing to second it, I'll make the motion.
Okay. I will second it.
Okay, move for approval of Resolution 2020-157 as presented.
With a second. Discussion further.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm going back to the article written by Healthcare. President Donald J. Trump is providing economic relief to American workers, families, and businesses impacted by coronavirus. Nowhere in any of these articles, remarks by President Trump at signing of H.R. 748, the CARES Act. In all these articles, there is nothing in any of these articles about the president wanting to give any money to the health department. It's supposed to go to workers, families, and businesses impacted by coronavirus.
Okay, so noted. We have a resolution 2020-157 with a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Also so noted. So, thank you, Keith, for that background.
You're welcome. Thank you. We'll get moving on it.
All right, so we are on the public comment. We have anybody on the phone?
I understand we have one caller on the line. Two callers on the line.
Let's take that.
Okay. I'll have them send up caller number one. Good morning. Is this Melinda? Hello? Can you hear me?
Hello.
Hi, is this Melinda?
Yes, this is Melinda Didier.
You have the floor. You have 3 minutes.
Oh, all right. Thank you. Thank you for taking my call and allowing me to comment. I just wanted to, at first, thank all the commissioners and staff for all your hard work. And we really do appreciate everything that you do. And I just briefly wanted to maybe suggest, I feel a little bit uncomfortable saying this, but I just am a little concerned about the divisiveness that I see and hear during the public meetings, and would like to encourage all commissioners to really take a step back and maybe consider about how counterproductive it is to reiterate at the beginning of every meeting, one's personal opinions on the governor's proclamation, and maybe consider just how it affects the county and the work that you're doing there. And again, I just really appreciate everything that you all do, and thank you for the opportunity to comment this morning.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate all of you, and have a great day.
You too. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Melinda.
Thank you. Bye.
Any others, Keith?
Yeah, yes, we're waiting for the other one to be patched through.
Okay.
Good morning. Is this Luanda?
Yes, it is.
Hi, Luanda.
Hey, so thank you for taking my call. I was just wondering why it is that we are giving $1 million to the health board or the health department, when I feel like that funding really should come from the state, since the health department is not answering to our commissioners. I've talked to a couple of the commissioners, not only in Franklin County, but in Benton County. And from what I understand, they are not giving the health board, which are the 6 commissioners, even some of the data. And I've asked for data on, since it's costing so much money for tracing, where people are getting this virus, and they will not give me that data. And I think that is important, because I've gone around to all the open businesses in Pasco, and not one person has gotten the virus that works at any of those stores. And I just feel like if there was community spread, you would at least get, a couple of the employees having the virus. And as far as I know from just my polling, none have gotten it. So I feel like it seems to me that our health department is answering to John Weissman and not to our local health board. So I don't feel like they're serving our community, they're serving the state. And so I agree with Commissioner Didier that they should not get 1 penny of that money. That should go to the businesses. And I would also add that it's Bob Cook's district and Commissioner Cook's district and Commissioner Peck's district that have the most businesses that are suffering. The Hispanic businesses in downtown Pasco they're starving. And I'm so very, very concerned. I've always frequented the downtown Pasco businesses. I bought my daughter's prom and homecoming dresses there. I shop at the 2 grocery stores down there. I shop at Griggs. I always have tried to support those small downtown businesses, because they are the lifeblood of our community. And I would really, really like to know how much they're suffering. Have we asked them? How much do they need even? I think we keep putting government first and the people last, and this is devastating. It's devastating to our community and to our people. This should be about them and not about government. Thank you.
Thank you. That is the end of our current list of callers, Commissioner.
Okay, at this point then, we will move on to pay bills.
Mr. Chairman, I've been provided one fiscal note this morning. It is fund expenditures. I move for approval of fund expenditures as presented. Total amount $233,571.38. Note that these expenditures have been reviewed and signed off by the county administrator and 2 members of the auditor's office.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That was one and only, and that's, I see here also. Move on to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead,
Chairman, I'd like to pull item 1 for a separate vote.
Okay. Just for discussion or for a complete separate vote?
For a complete separate vote and discussion.
Okay, so that brings us to consent 2 and 3.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm looking at multiple communications, and it looks like we've got consent 1, we've got 2, 3, somewhere in here I thought I saw a 4th one added.
I think that was a CARES Act, Commissioner.
It was, that's right. So by your count, how many do we have total?
We have 3. Resolution 2020-154, 155, 156. Resolution 154 has been asked to be removed from the consent for separate vote. So that leaves us with the consent item 2 and 3.
Right, I understand. Okay, so move for approval of consent with 3 items as just discussed.
Okay. We have 3 items, but 1 has been pulled, so we're gonna, is there a second?
I second the voting on consent items 2 and 3.
Yeah. Also, there is a motion and a second discussion. I would like a little bit of discussion on item 3 when we're ready. Any other discussion on item 2 or 3? My own discussion on 3 is the fact that we're ready to spend some money at the elections, but as far as I know, that is still a Franklin County facility. I see where there's grant money is going to be spent, but there's been no indication of what that money is being spent for, what they're planning on doing. There's no job description. So I don't know where I don't know how it got moved out of Franklin County into the auditor's office without some discussion.
So, Mr. Chairman, I concur. Maybe the county administrator can shed some light on what the actual work is to be done.
Yeah, Commissioners, Liz Couples is on the line too. She can explain perhaps in more technical detail than I could. But this is a grant to improve the security of the elections office. They currently do not have locks and security on the windows in all of the locations of that building. And so this grant funding is to improve the security of that building. Liz, do you want to explain in a little more detail what security issues this will be addressing?
Yes. So the Elections Department was awarded a HAVA grant, and with that money, they were wanting to expand their building security and building access control. So right now, they currently have one reader on their front door. There's multiple doors. I think there's 10 doors in that facility, and the rest of the doors do not have readers on them. So they requested a bid or a quote to cover all the doors with readers, and that's what this project is for.
Well, it's interesting to me, I guess, that the auditor's office decided to do this without any job description whatsoever. We're just been given a resolution to pay, to okay it, but there's been no discussion previous, so.
Well, Mr. Chairman, why don't we ask the auditor to chime in here and let us hear his account and what he's wanting to do there?
I figured if he was on, he would, so I was leaving it up to him. So.
During the project, I worked with Jeff and Ashley on this project, and provided them with the quote.
Yeah.
That's about all I know
Yeah.
at this
Well,
point.
I can understand the reasoning for what's being done. I just, like I say, it just fails me to all of a sudden we're asked to authorize a resolution and with no job description. So that's enough for me. I guess we have resolution 2 and 3 in front of us. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. So we'll get into discussion separate on the resolution 2020-154. Commissioner Didier?
Yes, sir, and I apologize, I was on mute when I voted, but I did vote aye.
Thank you.
You heard me. Yes, on resolution 1, again, here we are in my short term here as a commissioner, and the travel policy has come before us so many times, I don't even remember how many times it has been. And I just got to say, in government, whenever policies are changed, we've got to understand why they were written that way to begin with, and what will be the impact with the change. Now, I've also got to take a little argument to the fact that this is not travel. What this is, it's transportation allowances for commissioners and a prosecuting attorney. That's for people. And what we're doing here is we're combining the whole thing together and muddying the water. This resolution 2012-184 was passed in 2012. And at that point, Commissioner Peck was the chairman that authored this. And it was written pretty simple and plainly, very easy to understand. And now we're just muddying the waters with this, and we can't combine the two, because what we have is we have a travel policy, and then on the other hand, we have a commissioner, prosecuting attorney, car allowance. Now, I brought up early in the meeting that verbatim in there, we have seen where there was a discrepancy with a commissioner on his travel, and he has written a check back to the county, which clearly shows that he was out of compliance, and there was something wrongfully done here. And I don't understand why we're trying to combine all the travel into one when this allowance is not for anybody other than the commissioners and the PA. And so I am against combining the travel policies as it is so written in this resolution.
My concern on this mirrors very close to what you're speaking of, except for the fact that basically the assigned vehicle to a commissioner and prosecuting attorney should be separated from this travel policy, because that's an ER&R division requirement. It's not travel policy or the reimbursement of I'll say it, me driving a county vehicle. If you go down and look at the RCWs, that county vehicle allows me to have a vehicle 24 hours a day at home and everything else. So, but I pay for mileage between home and the workplace. So it's not all reimbursed. It's, but also you two, Commissioner Didier and Beck, are getting the same payment, which is, as far as I'm concerned, won't happen in the next budget, but because there won't be any commissioners driving county vehicles. So that ER&R items should be pulled from this travel policy, I guess, is the bottom line. Matt, I think you're on the phone. Could you throw any light in the subject?
What I will say is that I have prepared a vehicle usage policy for the county. It is a needed policy, and some of the elements that were covered in this updated policy are covered in that policy. So there is some redundancy there. But as far as I really have no comment on the allowances or whatnot. I will just say that there is some redundancy as far as really just the vehicles themselves and people and county employees as they're driving county vehicles and the such. So there is some redundancy. I really have no comments over this updated policy itself, other than to say the policy that I prepared has been reviewed by all of the elected officials and department heads. I have incorporated all the comments, and I've just held off from bringing it forward just based on the current situation that we find ourselves in. So it is something that I can provide to all the board members for their review, and I'm willing to do that immediately if they so choose to have me do so. So with that, I'll just go back on mute and listen.
Thanks, Matt. I think basically, as far as I'm concerned on this resolution 2020-154, is if the reference to ER&R vehicles and their drivers are eliminated, that goes on to public works, ER&R period. It has nothing to do with travel. The commissioners and everybody else are still eligible for travel money if they're outside of 50 miles from the workplace. So that has nothing to do with ER&R vehicles. Everybody's still eligible for travel revenue.
Agreed.
Commissioner Cook, Mr. Chairman, this is Keith. I may make a recommendation then that we not move forward with adoption of that resolution today. Let us go back and revisit this. The last time we talked about this issue, I thought we were kind of under the instruction to try to combine all of this into a single policy. But I'm aware of the board's concerns of how we've done that. So perhaps we should redraft that and bring that back at a future date.
I appreciate that, Keith, thank you.
Yes, Keith, and if I might add, in 2012, did we not have a committee that was formed to help put this travel policy together?
That's a good question. That was before my time with the county. I don't know who all was involved in putting that together.
I don't remember that, but that's 8 years ago,
Yeah,
so.
but I will say that part of the oversight of not having applied the 2012-184 was a function of having so many new people in the county administration office and the commissioner's office. Everybody's new since 2012, and a couple of us weren't aware of that provision, and that's why we needed to address it in the revised travel policy that we've been working on now for a couple of years. So, like I said, that was a little before my time, but others may have a better recollection of who put that together.
All right, so at this point, we'll just literally pull item 1 of the consent agenda for further review. So with that, we'll move on to your, unless there's somebody on the phone, Keith, we'll move on to your item.
There is no one on the phone at the moment, Mr. Chairman. The only other thing I have was a discussion on the proposals that we had received relative to starting social media and crisis communication on behalf of the county. I forwarded the proposals that we had received to each of you. I would be happy to address any questions that you may have, and kind of looking for some direction on how you as a board want to move forward with those.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I have looked over all the proposals, and at this point in time where we're at with this pandemic and what's going on, I don't feel comfortable indulging in any more spending. As an elected official, I have not taken a hit in any of my salary where these businesses and people are out there and they're suffering pretty much a hard road here for them. And I would encourage us to be patient on trying to add any more cost to our budget. And I don't really feel like we need a Facebook page or any social media of that kind. We have a website, and for me, that's sufficient enough.
Thoughts, Commissioner Peck?
Keith, what's the funding source for the work?
Well, initially, we could use CARES Act funding to get it started because I think the immediate need is to be able to communicate about the county's COVID response. But long-term, we would have to, if we wanted to engage in a long-term contract, that would probably require a commitment of the current expense fund.
So I certainly understand that opinions will vary on the need for keeping our citizens informed and how best to do that. I guess I would note that I think all of the local cities in our neighboring county across the river all have websites and I believe Facebook pages. I can't say I've checked each of them. In uncertain times, more communication is almost always better than less. And I realize there's a cost, but even things like getting the word out about CARES Act funding availability through TRIDEC, latest information from a single source. A lot of constituents who hear different versions of information, be it from myself or from Commissioner Cook or Commissioner Didier or yourself, and having a single point that people can refer back to with consistent information is a valuable public service. I think it's been recognized by all the other local jurisdictions how important it is to do it. And I think we ought to undertake it. And if going forward, CARES Act funding goes away and we decide that we can suspend it at that time, that's fine. But as so long as we've got CARES Act funding and we're in the middle of some, call it challenging healthcare times, business times, seems to me like a reasonable endeavor, regardless of whomever we choose to provide the service.
Oh, I wasn't really impressed with any of the four, honestly. I know there was one that cost us like $5,000 a month, and basically we'll be using our employees to feed them. And I would rather try to find somebody that we could hire as an FTE for, you know, $60K a year. So I'm having a hard time with those proposals.
As I am too, Chairman, and I think that using CARES Act money in this fashion and then creating the expense down the road, I'm not in favor of, and I'm not in favor of using CARES Act money for anything other than the businesses and the employees that are suffering through this, whatever you want to call it, this lockdown.
So at this point, it sounds like we have three separate opinions. I think everybody should get together with Keith and try to come up with the path forward.
Yeah, I'll be happy.
Mr. Chairman, I would offer that in the past, I've made recommendations that our population and the service needs of our constituents is such that a deputy county administrator position that is focused primarily on contracts, budgets, and public communication made a lot of sense. We've never pursued it because of budgets and costs. It sounds like that's what you're talking about now. So I'm not inherently opposed to that idea, but not advocating for it in the middle of what is likely to be some tough budget times. That's the only reason I'm not leaning to support that idea is the budget.
Well, what you just mentioned is the exact reason that I'm not supporting it, because it's basically what I see from the proposals. The one that I kept hearing was coming to the top was, like I say, basically a $5,000 a month fee, and any information that was going to be posted would come from our employees anyway. So that's
Okay,
what I
well,
guess.
Yeah, I take your point. I think that's good, fair comment.
I will be glad to visit with each commissioner and see if there's a path forward that looks like one where we can improve our public communication, whether that includes a social media component, I guess remains to be seen. But obviously, we've got to be very careful of how we pay for it and what kind of a long-term commitment we make to funding that. So I'll be glad to visit with you individually.
Thanks, Keith.
That was all of the administration office business, but it looks like we have another caller on the public line.
All right, you could open that, please.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Hi, yes. This is LaWanda again. I hate to keep calling in, but I was just going to point out that I think that there's no better public outreach than having the meetings on the way you have them on video. And people can listen on audio. So I think, I advertise when the meetings are all the time. That would be simple for any of the commissioners, all three of them actually advertising when the meetings are, maybe the links to the meetings and the numbers that they could call in. That's the best community outreach that you could ever get, is actually hearing the vote and the discussion in person, not just the results of the the vote and how it was decided. So I just say, you know, use that, which you've got, and it wouldn't cost anything. And, you know, at least see how that works or functions for a while. Because, you know, to spend $5,000 a month of CARES Act money to help the government, again, you know, if Commissioner Didier's math is correct, and every business that's been shuttered for months only gets $1,500, and we're paying someone $5,000 to run a Facebook account, I mean, that's crazy. So I would simply say try to do it with all three of the commissioners, just posting out there about when the meetings are, the link to the meetings, and the numbers that people can call in. Thank you.
Thank you, Luanda. That's the last call that I'm aware of, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Well, it is public comment time, so we'll give them another moment or so. Commissioners, do you have anything else for the good of the board? At one point, I understood that I shut it off too soon without hearing from somebody. So is there anything else for the good of the board?
I have nothing, Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I just offer that the information needs of the citizens that we serve don't always wait for a weekly meeting. They aren't always topics that are going to come before the board. Not taking a strong stand that we need to adopt any of these 4 proposals, or that we even need to go forward with any of those communications efforts. I do want to know, however, that my understanding was that staff would not be creating the content, merely reviewing it before it got posted to make sure that it was consistent with the county's view. That doesn't change any of the previous discussion. I don't think it's a reason for us to revisit it or have to reconsider it. I just wanted clarity that staff wasn't going to be creating content, merely looking at it for consistency and accuracy. So that's all. Thanks.
All right. Anybody else on the phone, Keith?
No, sir.
All right. With that, I think not having any further office business, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.